She walked into court smiling, calm, composed, almost amused. For months, she had shown up uninvited, followed him home, accessed his accounts, and still believed nothing serious would happen to her. After all, she wasn't just anyone. She was a teacher, a master's graduate, the daughter of a police chief. In her mind, the system was something that protected her, not something that judged her. But courtrooms have a way of stripping away illusion. And on this day, when the judge finally began to speak, the confidence on her face would collapse into something no one in that room expected. She walked into court smiling. Not nervous. Not scared. Smiling. For a second, it almost felt like this was just another appointment on her calendar. Another day she could talk her way through. She adjusted her posture, glanced around the courtroom, and carried herself like someone who believed the ending had already been written in her favor. But this wasn't paperwork. This wasn't a routine status hearing. This was months of following, watching, waiting, showing up uninvited, finally catching up to her. The story didn't begin in that courtroom, though. It began quietly, with a relationship that had run its course. David, a middle school teacher, had decided in April that it was over. No screaming fight. No dramatic scene. Just a conversation that said, "This isn't working." In his mind, that should have been the end. Two adults. Two professionals. Move on. But ending a relationship only works when both people agree to let it end. Hannah didn't. At first, it seemed harmless. A text. A call. A request to talk. Then she started showing up at his workplace. A middle school parking lot isn't a place you casually visit 33 times in 19 days. That's not coincidence. That's routine. GPS data would later confirm the pattern. Some days once. Some days twice. Sitting in her car. Watching the entrance. Waiting for him to leave. And when he did leave, headlights would appear behind him again. Following him home. Night after night. It's hard to describe the psychological weight of that kind of presence unless you felt it. You start questioning your own perception. Maybe it's random. Maybe you're overreacting. But when it keeps happening, when the same car keeps appearing, the doubt fades and the unease grows. And still, for weeks, he didn't call police. Hannah Freeman was 27 years old. She had a master's degree. She taught 4th grade in North Ridgeville, Ohio. On paper, she represented stability and trust. Parents handed their children to her every morning. She graded homework, attended meetings, lived what looked like a structured, responsible life. But there was another layer to her identity that mattered more than it should have. Her father was the town's chief of police. That detail doesn't automatically mean protection, but it can create a feeling of insulation. A sense that rules are flexible. In a previous incident involving noise complaints, she reportedly invoked his name when confronted. It wasn't subtle. It carried an undertone, "I'll be fine." That mindset, whether conscious or not, can shape how someone reacts when boundaries are set. So when David ended things, she didn't interpret it as final. She treated it like resistance to overcome. Showing up at his school became normal to her. Sitting in the parking lot felt justified. In her mind, maybe she was just checking in. Maybe she convinced herself she was helping. But intent doesn't erase impact. 33 visits in less than 3 weeks isn't romantic persistence. It's surveillance. And the pattern didn't stop there. According to his account, she followed him home regularly. That kind of consistency erodes peace slowly. You start scanning mirrors, watching parking lots, timing departures differently. living in low-grade alertness. And still, he waited. There's a stigma that men feel in situations like this, an unspoken pressure to handle it quietly. To not escalate. To not look dramatic. But escalation was already happening. November 6th became the turning point. She had planned to stay over. He told her not to come. It was finished. But she arrived anyway. And when she realized another woman was inside his apartment, something shifted from persistence to retaliation. Instead of leaving, she went to his unlocked vehicle. 2 backpacks were taken. Laptops. His wallet. Car keys. Prescription medication. These weren't sentimental keepsakes grabbed in anger. They were essentials. Items he would need immediately. Items that would force him to contact her. That detail matters because it shows planning, not impulse. The next day, exhausted, he called 911. His voice wasn't theatrical. It was drained. He explained that his ex kept stalking him. Parking next to him. Following him home. It had been about a month. That admission alone speaks volumes. It takes time to reach the point where fear outweighs hesitation. When officers responded again and found her sitting near his workplace, the pattern he described was confirmed in real time. On body camera footage, she appeared calm. When asked about being in his vehicle, she reframed events casually. Mentioned dinner. Downplayed the accusations. There was no visible panic. No emotional collapse. Just a steady tone that suggested she didn't view the situation as serious. But further investigation revealed more. Unauthorized credit card charges. Online purchases. Account access. She knew his passwords from when they dated. She had used that access. What started as unwanted presence had crossed into identity fraud. At that point, charges began stacking up: stalking, burglary, aggravated theft, identity fraud, drug theft. 5 felonies. Serious counts. Real consequences. And right here in the middle of this story, it's worth asking yourself something: at what point should intervention happen? After the first unwanted appearance? The 10th? Or only once criminal charges force the issue? She served 7 days in jail. But the consequences extended beyond a week behind bars. She lost her teaching career. Her professional reputation changed permanently. She faced monitoring, probation conditions, counseling. For David, the outcome meant something different: validation. Legal acknowledgement that what he experienced wasn't overreaction. It was sustained intrusion. This case sparked broader conversations about how society views female perpetrators, about how male victims often hesitate to report stalking, about how privilege, whether perceived or real, can delay accountability. It also revealed something uncomfortable: warning signs are often minimized when the person displaying them appears respectable. A teacher. A daughter of law enforcement. A well-spoken professional. But behavior defines reality more than resume does. In the end, this wasn't simply about a breakup that went wrong. It was about entitlement colliding with boundaries. About persistence turning into control. About the moment confidence meets consequence. And maybe the most important takeaway isn't what happened in that courtroom, it's what happened long before it. 33 visits. Repeated following. Account access. Those were the earlier chapters. The sentencing was just the final one. If you step back and look at the full arc, one question lingers: how many escalation points do we overlook before we recognize danger for what it is? And that's where this story leaves us, not just with a verdict, but with reflection. Stories like this don't start in courtrooms. they start with small decisions that slowly spiral. If you want more deep dives into real cases like this, make sure you're subscribed.